In episode 11, the story begins in the Kessler's meeting room with Lionel and Snarf. Now, as you can tell, Lionel's getting really frustrated. He has no idea what the ciphers of the book means, and he's getting really horrified. So he told Snarf that there is no way that he could decipher it because, as he says, he's been studying it for weeks. Also, as Lionel says in his case, that cracking the code is impossible. So Snarf, although he agrees with him, he says that his eyes have become so tired lately that he thought to coin a phrase to have a double vision. Now you may say it's crazy, but Snarf said that he has a suggestion for Lionel. He says, "What if you can use your sword as a magnifying glass?" he said. "Say, that's not a bad idea," Lionel said. So following Snarf's suggestion, that's what he did. But then what the sword did was unbelievable. So Snarf asked Lionel, "What's going on?" Lionel said that he isn't sure yet, but you may say it's crazy. He just said that the sword for some reason just interacted with the Book of Omens. What happened next was shocking. So what the book did is that it opened up by itself. So when Snarf was asking Lionel what's going on now, he didn't answer him. So what the book did is that it was about to transport Lionel into a book. Snarf has never seen anything like it before, but it was the first time he ever saw it. So when Lionel was about to go into the book, and then he finally did, that's when Snarf said, "Come back!" But he couldn't because what Snarf saw was unbelievable. Lionel, for the first time, went into the Book of Omens. But Snarf's not the only witness because in the Pyramid's tomb chamber, guess who else were witnesses? Mumm-ra and his canine sidekick, and they just saw what happened in the cauldron. And you could tell that Mumm-ra was very ecstatic. He says, "Well, it looks like Lionel's trapped in the book," he said. Well, he's not kidding because it's his first time, and let's not forget Mama's first time that they ever seen it. Well, long story short, in Mumm-ra's case, he's not wrong because Lionel's inside of the Book of Omens right this minute. Then back at the Kessler's meeting room, what the book did next is that after Lionel got transported there, the book closes itself up. Back with Snarf after he saw what had happened, he says, "Lionel, you come out of there this minute." But unfortunately, it's no use. Back at the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, Mumm-ra continues to watch it happen, and so did his canine pal. So he said, what better way to have an opportunity such as this? While Lionel's trapped in a book, that means Mumm-ra has a plan. With the Thundercats being powerless without their leader, he thought, what if he can destroy the book as well? So he thought once the Book of Omens is destroyed, then Lionel should be too. At least that's part of the plan. Meanwhile, at Kessler, in the control room, we have Cheetara, and she just contacted Panthro, who had just arrived on New Thundera in the Feliner, of course. So meanwhile, on New Thundera, Panthro said that while he was busy looking for more of the long-lost treasures on Thundera, that's when he stumbled onto something very important. And even better, he even shows Cheetara at the Kessler's control room of what he found, the key of Thundera. Oh, by the way, it'll be useful later. So that's good news for Cheetara, meanwhile, the Kessler's control room. Back on New Thundera, Panthro was about to explain to Cheetara the problem. And that's when Cheetara, back at the Kessler's control room on Third Earth, that's when she heard a voice saying, "Hey, Cheetara, come quickly! It's Snarf." And so Cheetara tells Panthro that she'll have to contact him later, and so she heads off to the meeting room. So, after a long story short, Lionel has found out that he's in the Book of Omens. Back in the Kessler's meeting room, Snarf just told Cheetara what had happened. He said that all Lionel did was hold the sword against the Book of Omens, and the next thing he knew, that he was gone. So, to demonstrate, Snarf did the same thing as Lionel did. He held up the sword against the book, and what the book did is unbelievable. It opened up by itself, just like it did to Lionel. And before Cheetara could find out what was going on, she was about to witness that Snarf is going into the book just like what Lionel did. So, just like what Lionel did, Snarf went inside the Book of Omens, and Cheetara was the first to witness it. So, after the Book of Omens closed itself up again, just like it did the first time, Cheetara panicked and was calling for Snarf to ask him to come back and come out of that book, but no such luck. So, long story short, back with Snarf, he had just arrived in the exact same place as Lionel did. So now that Lionel had found Snarf at last, and of course the other way around, they were happy to see each other. But what they didn't know is that they suddenly realized that they weren't alone, because the guardian of the Book of Omens just appeared out of nowhere. It said, "Welcome to the Book of Omens. You wish to know its secrets." Then the guardian of Omens had asked the question, "Do you have the key of Thundera?" Before Lionel can answer the guardian's questions, he said that it's true that he did want to know the secrets, but then he asked the question of what the key of Thundera is. So the guardian was more than happy to show him the picture of the key. Now remember, that's the exact same key that Panthro found on New Thundera. We'll get to that later. Then the guardian said, "Without the key, you cannot unlock its secrets from the Book of Omens itself," he said. Story short, the Guardian just told Lionel and Snarf that without the key of Thundera, they are doomed after they were surrounded by four pillars and some dragons, and they were about to be roasted to death. Meanwhile, in the Kessler's control room, Cheetara just told Panthro that was still on New Thundera the bad news. She says, "I know this sounds crazy, but I think Lionel and Snarf are trapped in the Book of Omens." Then Cheetara said that there's a bigger problem. She had no idea how to get them out of the book. So Panthro, after he heard the bad news in the situation, he told Cheetara, "Listen, just keep the sword away from the book. We don't want to lose you too. I'll try to come with the key as much as possible since we finished," he said. So Cheetara agrees, and then she says, "Please, just get here as fast as you can," she said. So after the transmission ended, Cheetara was going to put the sword away so that it could be far away from the book as much as possible. But then she heard a voice from behind her that said, "Maybe I can help with that. It's Mumm-ra." So what Mumm-ra did is that he was about to attack Cheetara, but Cheetara dodges his attack. So she's going to do whatever a good guy knows how. Keep the sword and book away and to not let them fall into the wrong hands. So that's exactly what she did. But when Mumm-ra attacks again, that's when Cheetara loses both the sword and the book because of Mumm-ra's attack. So Cheetara went into plan B. So, what was plan B? Well, the first thing Cheetara did was to tackle Mumm-ra and luckily got the sword, but she didn't grab the book in time. Long story short, after Cheetara's plan B had failed, that's when Mumm-ra told her to give it up and just let him take what he came for. But when Cheetara refused, that's when she went into plan D. So she's going to try something she's never did before. She spun around and grabbed both the book and the sword at once. Back with Mumm-ra, he's never seen anything like it before, but it was the first time he witnessed it. But then he had to stop her by using his power, of course. Then, thanks to Mumm-ra's power, Star begins to slow down, and then after that, she collapsed. Leaving the Kessler's control room, Mumm-ra picks up both the book and the sword from the floor while Cheetara's unconscious. And as he was leaving, he pleaded a case to say now that he's got both the book and the sword, and unfortunately for Lionel and Snarf, they're going to be trapped inside for the rest of their lives. And there's nothing they can do about it, or so he thought. So he left the control. Long story short, meanwhile in the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, Mumm-ra just told his canine pal that the sword is useless now without Lionel holding it. He also told his sidekick, Mahmud, that he has a favor for him. He said since Mumm-ra's not able to use the sword anyway, so what he did is that he told his canine pal to go bury the sword somewhere. But not only that, Mumm-ra is planning to destroy the Book of Omens along with Lionel and Snarf that was inside of it. At least that's the case. So, back with Mumm-ra, what he did is that he threw the sword and told his canine pal to go bury it. So, as Malmut heads off, back with Mumm-ra, he's standing over a cauldron and is about to destroy the Book of Omens along with Lionel and Snarf inside. But by surprise, Malmut came back with a sword in his mouth. So Mumm-ra told his canine pal, "No, no, I said bury it, not fetch it." So Mumm-ra threw the sword again. And then once again, just like he did once before, Malmut heads off. Long story short, after Mumm-ra was about to make a second attempt to destroy the book with Lionel and Snarf inside, now speaking of which, back inside the Book of Omens with Lionel and Snarf, things didn't look so good for them. So Snarf in a panic just told Lionel to do something about it. So that's when, aha, he has a plan. He said if the sword got them into this mess, maybe the sword can get them out. Meanwhile, back at the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, for the second time, Mahmud just brought the sword back to Mumm-ra, and he got upset about it. So Mumm-ra made his threat clear to say to Mahmud, either he does it right this time or he'll send him to obedience school. But then he got frustrated and threw the sword at it. Mahmud, that is, and said, "Do whatever you want, just get rid of it." Now, don't ask me why, because one of the ancient spirits of evil statues just attacked Mahmud with the sword in his mouth. So after Mahmud ran off, he went right into the sarcophagus. Back with Lionel and Snarf inside the Book of Omens, things are looking bad. Snarf had pleaded a case to ask a question. How is the sword going to get us out of this mess? It's outside while we're inside, he said. True, Lionel says, but we won't be inside for long, so guess what he did? He did what any good guy would do. He calls for his sword to come to him. While back at the tomb chamber, while Mumm-ra's still holding a book, and while Mahmud was holding a sword, what both of them did was unbelievable. Long story short, as the sword and the book were about to combine to get Lionel and Snarf out of the book itself, what Mumm-ra did is that he threw the Book of Omens and is about to be landed into a cauldron, while back inside the book, things are looking hopeless for both Lionel and Snarf that are still inside. That was until suddenly back at the Pyramid's tomb chamber, don't ask me how, but for some reason the sword just finally lets go of Mahmud, combines with the book just in time before it lands in the cauldron, and then before you know it, both sword and book were flying in the air. Back with Mumm-ra, who was in shock because he's never seen anything like it before. And so, what he saw next was unbelievable. The sword spinning around while it's still on top of the book. And so what happened next was unbelievable. When Snarf and Lionel, well, good news for them, they had ejected themselves out of the book and just in time to appear themselves inside the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber. Mumm-ra, who was now all upset since Lionel and Snarf had made it out of the book, but then he pleaded his case to say to both of them that they should have stayed inside, so he started to attack both of them. Long story short, after Lionel used his claw shield twice, that's when Mumm-ra attacked him, and when he did, both sword and book fell right to the floor. Now Mumm-ra was in shock. He's never seen it before, but it's the first time he witnessed it. Back with Mumm-ra, when he picked up the sword, it was so hot that he dropped it on the floor. So long story short, Snarf decided to attack Mumm-ra by jumping on his face and attacking him. So after Mumm-ra fell on his back, guess what Mumm-ra did? He uses his power to wrap Snarf in a bunch of bandages. So back with Lionel, and after long story short, Mumm-ra had made his threat clear that he'll destroy him. So what Lionel did is that he attacked Mumm-ra with sword power, and just like what any good guy would do, Lionel does what he knows best. He projected the Thundercats signal from his sword. Later, back at the Kessler's control room, the first two Thundercats to see the signal first were Wily-Kit, who's Wily-Cat's sister, and Cheetara. Wily-Kit was told by Cheetara to meet her at the Thundertake. Meanwhile, in a Feline that just came back from New Thundera to Third Earth, and inside were Tigra and Panthro, and they were on their way to the Black Pyramid. But there's a problem. Panthro said that for some reason the throttle wouldn't stay on. But then, remember the key of Thundera that Panthro found? So guess what? He has an idea. He figured, why not use it for the feliner's throttle? So that's what he did. So then he told Tigra, now this is something that a key is used for one thing, and he's not kidding. So now the feliner's on his way to the Black Pyramid. Meanwhile, back at the Black Pyramid's tomb chamber, things didn't look so good for Lionel when Mumm-ra woke up from unconsciousness and attacked him from behind. That causes Lionel to be disarmed, and worst of all, just like what he did with Snarf, Lionel too is wrapped in bandages too. After Mumm-ra picked up both the Book of Omens and the Sword of Omens at once, he told Lionel and Snarf that he'll deal with them later, and so since he's getting weaker by the minute and he has to recharge, but first he has to find out what's inside the Book of Omens. So he came up with the same idea as Lionel did back at the Laird's meeting room. If Lionel can use the sword on the Book of Omens, then Mumm-ra should too. Back with Lionel, he tried to warn Mumm-ra by saying that he has no idea what he's getting himself into. Unfortunately, he's a minute too late to do anything about it. So, Mumm-ra did the same thing as Lionel and Snarf did. He went inside the Book of Omens. And just like before, twice, both the sword and, of course, the book fell on the floor. Back outside the pyramid, the first to arrive were Cheetara and Wily Kid of the Thundercats in a thunder tank, and then they ran into the tomb chamber. They found it weird that it was empty. Well, good news, they only arrived in time to see Lionel breaking free from the bandages, and he's now breaking free from the bandages from Snarf. So Cheetara asked Lionel a question, where did Mumm-ra go? Well, he's in the book, Lionel said. This is good news for the Thundercats, but bad news for Mumm-ra when Snarf just let slip that he doesn't have the key of Thundera with him. The Cheetara says, wait a minute, did you say a key? Because remember back at the Kessler's control room before Cheetara left, Panthro had mentioned something about the key that he found earlier. Meanwhile, back with Mumm-ra, he had just entered the Book of Omens just like what Lionel and Snarf did. Then suddenly, just like what Snarf and Lionel did, Mumm-ra came face to face with the guardian of the Book of Omens, who asked Mumm-ra the exact same question as he asked Lionel and Snarf. Do you have the key of Thundera? What key? Mumm-ra said. I don't need it, he said. Then suddenly out of nowhere were four pillars with dragons on it, just like what Lionel and Snarf seen. Now Mumm-ra has seen them. And then he mocked with a question. Do you think that's gonna scare me? Told Mumm-ra the exact same thing as he told Lionel Snarf that without the key he's doomed. So, long story short, after Mumm-ra had went back to his mummified self again, back with Lionel, along with Cheetara, Wily Kit, and Snarf in the Pyramid's tomb chamber, that means Lionel has only one decision to make. So he told Cheetara that Mumm-ra's going to be stuck in the book unless he goes back in and saves him. So Cheetara asked a question. Are you crazy? Then she begs Lionel, please don't go in there. You know what happened the last time you went in there, she said. Then Lionel explained to Cheetara this situation. We are Thundercats after all, and of course he's not wrong. And since that's the case, he said, we must help anyone in distress, especially our enemies, including that creep Mumm-ra, he said. So, for the second time, just like what he did back at the Kessler's meeting room, he uses his sword on the Book of Omens, and he went inside. Oh, by the way, this is Lionel's second time he went inside. So now that he's there, he saw Mumm-ra, and he's screaming, help! Help! Get me out of here! Guardian of Omens had asked the same question to Lionel as he did to Mumm-ra and then Snarf. Do you have the key? Then Lionel says, no, but I will be back. Hang on, Mumm-ra. And so, just like what he did the second time, he calls for his sword to come to him. And just like it did once before, the sword combines with a book. And when it did, both Lionel and Mumm-ra went out of the book, just like what Lionel and Snarf did. Back with Mumm-ra now that he's back in his own tomb chamber, and so did Lionel, the leader of the Thundercats. So what Mumm-ra did next, he went right back in his sarcophagus. So after that, Lionel told Cheetara, Wily Kid, and Snarf, "Come on, let's get back to the lair. We have enough of this place for one day." And so they left the pyramid. So meanwhile in the Kessler's meeting room we have Wily Kid, who's Wily Cat's sister. We have Snarf, Panthro, Lionel, Tigra, and Cheetara. Now Wily Kid finds this very hard to believe, but she asked the question to Lionel why he felt it was necessary to go inside the book to risk his life to save that creep Mumm-ra. But Lionel said that he had no choice. He had to do what's necessary, he said. Then he tells her that there was no way he could have just left him in there because there's no telling what kind of secrets that Mumm-ra would discover if he did. "Why bother?" Snarf asked. "We couldn't even decipher the book anyway. Face it, it's useless," he said. So after Snarf said that there was no way they could unlock the secrets without the key anyhow, and that's when Panthro remembers the exact same key he found on New Thundera earlier, when he and Tigra went. So Lionel explains to Panthro what the key of Thundera looked like. Now remember, Panthro had asked about it, and then Cheetara had asked about it back at the pyramid right before she and the rest of her friends left. So when Panthro asked Lionel, "You mean this key?" And then he shows it to Lionel as he did to Cheetara back at the Kessler's control room when he was on New Thundera, and so is Tigra. Then by surprise and omission by confession, that's when Panther explains that while he and Tiger on New Thundera earlier, he spotted a key. He thought it was useless and then he almost threw it away. But then he found a better use for it when he and Tiger were on their way to the Black Pyramid earlier, right before they left. So after hearing the good news, that's when Lionel says now we can open up the book and learn his secrets. But when he looked inside the seat to where Snarf was sitting at, it was empty. And then he realized to where Snarf was hiding at, behind the seat to where Wily Kid was sitting at. So Snarf says, "If you don't mind, I think I'd rather sit outside this time." Well, that's a smart move on his part after what he went through. So now the Thundercats has the key of Thundera. So that ends episode 11.